Good morning, everyone. We're back with the normal monthly catch-up. We're only covering new releases. With these, I am separating the quarantine watch list and the monthly catch-ups. The former will talk about the older films, and the latter is the only new releases zone. So, the first movie I watched from the year was Shadow in the Cloud. Shadow in the Cloud was surprisingly watchable in the first 50 or so minutes, but the last act dropped the ball way too many times for the whole thing to be acceptable and believable in my head. It is set during the Second World War as Chloe Grace Moretz's character aboard a flight carrying some confidential documents as the crew encounters some evil physical presence in the air. It took me a while to get into Chloe as this character, but I think she pulled it off well. The green screen is at times very noticeable that rips you out of the movie right away. The sound mix is very flat and the music doesn't quite match the picture that well, but at least I really enjoyed the majority of the first half, mainly because of the bottle nature of it all, which I think the whole film should have stuck to. The whole movie doesn't drag at all. Even though Run, Hide, Fight really is political for the most part, I try not to look at it and talk about it like it is. Obviously, there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes of this one, but just to look at this in a tunnel vision, I think you can argue it is a well-made action thriller. However, on my part, it just isn't working because the theme or the message or the political agenda, if you want to look at it in a certain lens it is trying to convey, is getting in the way of storytelling. It's basically a school shooting hostage situation, but the way the movie portrays the shooters is very Hollywood and Joker-like, which for me, a person who knows nothing about nothing, I don't think is a true-to-life portrayal of such an event or a character or a situation. It can possibly be offensive, but the thing that put the nail in the coffin for me easily was the ending, because it's such a betrayal of everything the movie has been trying to say in the past 100 or so minutes. Outside the Wire on Netflix is about a duo of a drone pilot and an android going into a militarized zone to locate a doomsday device armed with a ticking clock and everything. Like many others, by this point I trust Netflix with drama but not so much on action. The actions in this, I found them to be very ugly. There are so many twists and turns and reveals throughout. I found it quite unnecessary. Sometimes it seems like they're doing it just for the sake of it. The Dick covers the reimagination of the events of the 1939 excavation of Sutton Hoo as a widow hires an archaeologist to clear out the burial mounds on her property. Also on Netflix, and to summarize, I just don't think there is enough material for a feature as the film wanders through storylines and characters with seemingly little connection with the story itself. The film was shot almost like a documentary, mostly handheld with wide lenses that gives the picture the warp on the edges that makes the audience very dizzy at times, especially in some of the exterior shots here. I found myself wishing they would set the camera down, and the editing is also quite weird. I guess the collaborative work between the editor and the director just didn't quite work out. Almost every cut is either a J or L to seemingly shorten the runtime, which I'm quite confused about. The Little Things with Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto follows a sheriff and a detective who are trying to catch a serial killer on the loose in downtown LA. One thing I would say about it is that it's such a slow burn, yet I didn't get bored for the most part. It's one of those burns where it's not too hot, but you relish the pain. The Little Things kind of played out like that. The editing, again, is so uncalled for, is choppy, is distracting, and the script is a bit all over the place, but I appreciate a few things the filmmakers were going for. Who would have thought that Malcolm and Marie would be the target everyone decided to aim their cannons at in 2021? Apparently, the first film that was written, financed, produced, and released all during the pandemic. It's an arguing battle between a couple after their movie premiere. For a film that takes you through so many emotional beats and turns, it's surprising how one note the whole thing seems to be at times. There are so many emotional hard turns with slight buffers and B-rolls in between that not all of them worked. The whole thing felt rushed because it probably was. I do like how it was shot and some of the things discussed here, like politicizing art, hypothesizing perspectives through the vessel of a kind of toxic relationship. and so on. Below Zero follows a group of prisoners who are attacked by an unknown presence when being transferred by a van. Again, another semi-bottle that I just cannot get enough of. I hope 2021 will be the year of bottle. I like the concept a lot, but the action sequences are not the prettiest in this one. There also seems to be some sort of continuity issues here and there, but I do find it interesting how some of the shots are framed. We spend a lot of time in a contained space, and you can kind of see the camera is squeezed into places that give the shot some sort of flavor, though the morals imposed at the end of the day are conflicting, to say the least. Earwig and the Witch, the first 3D animated film by Studio Ghibli directed by Goro Miyazaki. I still remember when I first saw the promo photos of this film and had a very visceral reaction. Look, I'm not the guy who complains about shit based on trailers or promos or anything like that, but this one kind of got to me and surprised me by just how uncanny the characters look, and you've pretty much heard everything that is to be said about this movie. Besides the bare-bone, half-baked story and screenplay, this is an attempt I respect and appreciate, but it just didn't work. I would love to see what comes next out of the studio if they want to continue exploring the style, but for now, Earwig and the Witch might only be a stepping stone. If there's anything I learned from watching Willy's Wonderland is that I can totally watch Nick Cage silently cleaning a restaurant for an hour and a half and still be infinitely entertained by it. Pretty much Nick Cage is this stoic guy who doesn't emote or speak that gets hired to clean out a restaurant that resembles Chuck E. Cheese and Five Nights at Freddy. And animatronics start coming alive and Nick Cage has to fist fight his way to survival. I love this movie because of Nick Cage. He can sit there and breathe for 2 hours and I would still watch it. Now, of course, there are exposition dumps that tell you about the lore of the place or the curse or whatever it is. Pretty basic stuff, but it's not about the destination. It's about the journey and the joy of spending time with Nick Cage for 90 minutes. Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is about Barb and Star going to Vista Del Mar, and this is one of the highlights so far in 2021 for me. It is this quirky and nonsensical type of comedy that is very self-aware and doesn't take itself seriously at all. There are jokes about how they are telling jokes and there are songs about singing a song. Overall, the movie embodied this incredibly distinct language or grammar, if you will, where I think most people can go in and have a good time with. There's so many quotes here too that are just hilarious. Palmer follows Palmer, who is fresh out of prison as he tries to regain his footing in modern society. It may feel hokey and fake at times. The directing seems a bit too non-energetic as well. There are a lot of scenes of people sitting and standing around talking without doing much of anything. I see some are intentional to give that sense of awkwardness and distance between characters, but the rest of them kind of just blend. So there's no distinct contrast of how the scenes and characters are portrayed, but it is such a non-confrontational movie, and I'm saying that as a compliment. It's mundane, though it can easily be seen as the screenplay not going anywhere. Red Dot is a Swedish film on Netflix that follows an estranged couple on a hiking trip in the mountainous regions where they find themselves being hunted by some unknown shooters. This is a very external movie. It kind of rides the line of being surface level, artificial, and plot driven narrative, which I don't mind overlooking, and that's not necessarily the issue here. I just didn't quite feel for the internal stuff. The screenplay is written in a way where you can pick a side through the narrative, and no matter which side you pick, you'll lose either way. One word: disappointing. I Care a Lot is also another one that muddies the water a lot when it comes to morals and values, and we've seen it work before. A film that follows an asshole the entire time and seeing them succeed for a big chunk of the runtime. It's exploitative in a way to shine a light on the corrupted system, but compare this to, say, Nightcrawler. There's something missing here. There's something that made the film an immediate turnoff for me, to which I'm still trying to grasp and find out myself. I guess having blue eyes is a huge criteria for the filmmakers, but for the love of God, please stop having your movies look so fucking blue. It's ugly. Flora and Ulysses tells you that if you shove your beloved pet into a vacuum cleaner, it might come out a superhero that raises a revolution against animal control. I didn't like this movie because the execution of the lesson being taught here is not quite up my alley, while the lesson of standing up and facing your problems and becoming your own hero is something we've seen many times in movies. Telling it through the vessel of a squirrel who exists only externally in relation with the main protagonist, I think probably isn't the best way. I always find it very eye-opening when I see a documentary that covers events that happened when I was a kid but not mature enough to understand and dig into, so most of them just live in my memory. Assassins, that just came out a couple of months ago, was an excellent example, and this one definitely hit even closer to home for me. I remember talking with my friends about the disappearance of Elisa Lam, and when the security footage got released, it was and still is one of the creepiest and weirdest videos I've ever seen. But of course, watching this documentary kind of cleared a lot of things off in my head. As a documentary, it probably isn't the best. If anything, it's just another example among infinite other ones that shows you that the internet has made it too easy for people to say their opinions that no one gives a shit about. But as a person who had his time talking about the subject and was intrigued by the story from day one, I would say this is a quite enjoyable watch. And the last release I saw from the first 2 months of 2021 was Lockdown, another pandemic movie that doesn't seem like it has anything to offer. While I do like the design of having a couple who has already separated being locked under one roof because of this virus thing and them attempting a heist as one, I was kind of zoning in and out of this one for the first hour and a half because nothing much happens besides you get to watch the already tiring non-stop Zoom calls. Politically, it can be tone deaf, but artistically, you can watch something better. And that's everything that I watched in the past 2 months, all the new releases, that is. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you next time. Subscribe. Yeah, bye.